What's up, bikers? Welcome to, I don't know, did I just start too early? Oh my God. 5 years or who knows how long I've been doing this. 153 episodes, still all screwed up. What's up, bikers? Welcome to episode 153 of the B1KER Bar Podcast live stream. I just did that twice because it felt like the right thing to do. And I wasn't sure if I actually went live before I started talking or after I started talking. I'm just going to ramble for a minute. It doesn't even matter. Anyways, today we have Aaron Lutze from the Super Rider. Lutze, I think it's Lutze. I didn't ask him how to pronounce his last name, but that seems about right. We have Aaron from the Super Rider channel. If you haven't heard from him, neither did I, or until like a week ago. I just bumped into his channel. It really blows me away that I've been doing YouTube for as long as I have in this space, and I feel like I know everybody. And then all of a sudden I just like run into a channel that's got 60,000 subscribers and I've never heard of them. So I'm very flattered that he actually has watched some of the shows in the past. So now I'm the douchebag that just is like out of touch or something. I don't know. Anyways, really stoked to have him on the show. Before we get started though, thank you Patreon people for supporting the channel. Can't say it enough. This is a grassroots thing, man. I'm not getting like dump truck loads of money from podcast sponsors or YouTube or anybody else to keep this going. It's really just some slightly overweight guy that likes to drink a lot of beer in his garage doing this for fun. And it's expensive. So it's awesome to have some amazing supporters out there, and everybody on Patreon is supporting this and keeping this going. And if you listen to this and you enjoy it, you could either throw me a tip on the YouTube, like a little, I don't know what they call that. I think it's called a tip or something on there. Anyways, or you can swing by Patreon, throw $1 at me a month or $5 at me a month and get some stickers and a cool bottle opener and whatever else I got up there as part of the deal. But honestly, what it really comes down to is just helping support the channel. And I really, truly appreciate everybody out there. And those of you that have written a review over on Apple Podcasts, right on. Every time I read those things, make me stoked. So I haven't checked this week. I'm going to wait till next week's episode and see if anybody can write me a new one. 5-star review at Apple Podcasts. That would be awesome. If you could do that, it'd be sweet. If you don't want to do any of those things for free, you can go to Facebook or Instagram, give me a follow. If you're watching on YouTube and you haven't subscribed, hit subscribe. It's pretty simple. Thumbs up if you enjoy the episode or any episode for that matter. And all right, let's just go ahead and get started. What's up, Aaron?
How's it going?
Not bad, man.
Thanks so much for having me on. It's great to have a chat.
Yeah, man. Like I was saying in the intro, man, I'm always blown away when I run into a channel that I've never heard of, because it feels like a really small community. And then it's like, how did I not know about this dude?
I don't know. Trials riders kind of fly under the radar, I guess.
But I've had a couple of trials guys. I've had Hans Ray on. I've had Jeff Lenoski. So it's like
the legends.
Yeah, I know, right? You're right there with them, man. You've been around for a while, huh?
Yeah, I actually used to compete alongside Jeff and rode with Hans, all that stuff way back in the day. When I was a lot younger, I'd ride trials and go to the Norba competitions and all that stuff when they were competing. And Jeff's actually the one who got me into doing trials demos back in the day. He put me on Schwinn and got me hooked up with frames and, helped get us onto the Vans Warped Tour to do demos. So my first kind of entry into the bike industry was all trials and doing demos and stuff like that. And then I picked up a camera, and that kind of led me into making a lot of bike films and then eventually into a real job with Red Bull. So, it just kind of escalated from there. But yeah, Jeff had a big hand in kind of getting me off and running.
It's so weird hearing like, I got sponsored by Schwinn. I remember like when I was talking to Jeff, it's just like such a name that now doesn't have the weight that it had back then. But I mean, you're pretty close in age to me. And I mean, Schwinn wasn't like a bad name back in the day, It's kind of like saying mongoose now. Like everybody in my generation wanted a mongoose. Like that was the bike to have. And now if you say mongoose, it's like Walmart,
Yeah, it's definitely changed. I mean, the industry changes and it's so interesting to see. I mean, just how different brands have kind of gone back and forth. Sometimes you're at the peak, and then other times you get gobbled up by a bigger company and a bigger company. And you're back to square one again, as it seems.
Yeah.
It's hard to stay on top, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Apparently. I mean, unless you're like specialized, right?
Yeah.
They're like the Microsoft of bikes right now. But I don't know. I guess they're probably no bigger than Schwinn was back in the day, you know?
Yeah, Schwinn, I think I don't remember exactly, but did they buy GT and then that didn't work out so well, and then Pacific bought both of them? I forget how it went. It seemed like there
Yeah.
was a bad deal done that tanked both of them. And
Yeah.
I mean, at the time, Steve Pete was riding for GT, Hans Ray, Jeff Lennart, like everybody
Yeah.
was either riding for Schwinn or GT, and there were a lot of people that went a little while without a bike sponsor, and maybe
Yeah.
that was like the great reshuffling, right, of all the pros, where they were consolidated on these two big factory teams, and then didn't have a paycheck all of a sudden and had to go find new homes. And I think Petey went to Orange at the time,
Mhm.
and Jeff went to Giant, which then Giant developed the STP, which became sort of one of the original dirt jump and street bikes. So that wasn't the
Mhm.
worst thing that ever happened.
Yeah.
Maybe it ended up okay in the end, but
Yeah.
definitely not ideal if you were one of those like 20 or 30 factory riders, I suppose.
Yeah. 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 The biking, like the industry as a whole, I mean, compared to back then, it's really a totally different landscape. I mean, you're starting to see, at least from my perspective, like trials is kind of making a comeback. Like dirt jumping, in a sense, to me is like, I don't know what we called it in the BMX days, but it was still like it all fell into BMX back then, and you're starting to see that kind of get a little bit more like popular with younger kids. But I mean, when I was middle school, high school, like it was pretty much BMX, and that just kind of like encompassed everything, right? Whether it was like you were like doing like freestyle kind of trick stuff, which I think kind of like led its way into trials, and then or like BMX, like more like dirt stuff where you're kind of like, we didn't really have pump tracks. It was just like, hey, we go down this dirt trail and we hit this tabletop, and like it's interesting to see like that's coming back.
I think a lot of it has to do with just how accessible everything is now. I mean, I got into trials for a couple of reasons, but really I kind of fell into it because I ran into somebody else who rode trials and they showed me this stuff in
Hmm.
person.
Hmm.
And it's not a very common thing that you could just do it back then. And same thing, people started riding BMX because it was the most accessible thing, but they would never have picked up flatland, for example, or dirt jumping on a mountain bike, or even mountain biking for that matter, because it wasn't as accessible. Now
Yeah.
everything is, right in front of you, and you can go on YouTube, you can watch a tutorial, you can learn all about this thing, or maybe you saw it on Instagram, you're like, what is this? Whereas
Yeah.
before, I mean, we communicated by like magazines and VHS tapes. It was harder to get the word out, or get something new in front of somebody. Whereas
Yeah.
today, you could be completely exposed to something you've never heard of before every single day, and then choose if you wanted to go down that rabbit hole or not. So I think the resurgence or the growth of some of these things is sort of based on, kind of the internet and the accessibility that we now have. But, when you and I were growing up, that wasn't a thing. It was sheer luck that
Yeah.
someone who rode in a different kind of riding style than me ran into me, borrowed my bike, showed me how to hop on my back wheel, and that was
Yeah.
pretty much over for that. After that.
Yeah. For me, like it was kind of just BMX was like the way you got around. And then it was like, if you were one of those kids that just really like did it a lot, then you kind of just hung out with other kids that did that. And then it was, naturally you're starting to do like jumping and stuff like that. And, movies like Rad came out and it was like, oh my God, yeah, I want to learn how to do that. Or, and I think with mountain biking, it was one of my mom's boyfriends that was into it, which is like, when I think back to like him being into mountain biking, like as it was just starting, that was kind of odd too. Like, you know what I mean? It wasn't like there was a lot of people that were really into it. And it was weird because I like rode BMX during the week with my friends and my school friends. And then on the weekends, I'd go like with these old dudes that are like probably younger than I am now,
That's
and go ride bikes with them. And yeah, it's interesting. It's really, I mean, now they have like teams and stuff like that in middle school and high school. It's
yeah.
so rad.
Yeah, I spoke to Eric Porter earlier today, and he was going to coach his kid's mountain bike team at school. What?
Yeah.
Like, how is that? I would have killed to have something like that when I was in
Yeah.
school. Instead, I got made fun of it because I could have bought a car for that much money. Like
Yeah.
all the kids in high school clowned me so hard for spending my money on a mountain bike instead of a car. Now it's like the cool thing is to have the sick mountain bike and be on the team and, be doing the thing.
Yeah. I met some kid like on the trail, and he was like the only other person that was my age that rode mountain bikes. I mean, there was a bunch of people in school that had quote unquote, for those of you listening, mountain bike, but it was really like their parents went to Montgomery Wards or Sears and bought a mountain bike, but they weren't really into mountain biking like what I was doing with my friend, with these old guys, right? Actually going out in the woods and riding trails. I guess we're kind of XC, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, one person, that was all I knew, one guy.
Quite a bit different now. I mean,
yeah, right. So how'd you get into riding? What was it for you like initially?
Back in the day, I had a bunch of friends in high school that got into it and kind of dragged me along. And again, this is like early days mountain bike action, old school mountain bike films, tread, retread, and I just started riding with them. But the problem was I was super tiny. I basically was the shortest kid in high school. And didn't really grow until college. So I never had any like the physical ability to ride and keep up with my friends, which was frustrating. But I wanted to ride nonetheless because I really loved riding with them. I loved riding. I grew up in Wisconsin where there's actually quite a bit of cross-country trails and stuff.
Yeah.
Not a lot of downhill or dirt jumps really either. But I would love to just go out and ride with them and be in the forest doing my thing. And I wanted to keep up so bad, but just wasn't happening. And I just kept riding. And then we were on a family trip out to the West Coast, and I got to ride Washington for the first time on a mountain bike, which was pretty sick. I live in Oregon now, so I guess maybe that kind of, got me fired up for the West Coast. But I was having a blast on the West Coast, and we stopped at a campground one night in Idaho, and I was riding around just in the campground, just kind of.
Were you guys on some kind of like road trip or something that you had your bike with you? Or
yeah. My parents are both they're both teachers, so every summer we do like a road trip for a week or two to some part of the country to like go do educational things because that's what parents do, right?
Right.
Especially,
I gotta go again.
we did some really cool stuff, but definitely it always, because they were teachers, it had to have an educational twist. So
right.
We ended up like pulling off in the motorhome, totally random. Like it was not a planned stop. It was just like, oh, let's stop here for the night in I think Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and it was at a campground, KOA campground, and I was just rolling around on this bike, and this German kid comes up to me. He's like, "Hey, can I see your bike?" Like, yeah, sure, why not? And he starts hopping on the back wheel. And this is like, what was it? A GT. I forget the model name. I think it was anyways, it was a GT cross country bike with Onza bar ends, with suspension, with toe clips, like all this stuff. This guy gets on this bike that's very clearly not a trials bike and hops up and over a picnic table in front of me on my bike.
Yeah.
And I went to the full like Doctor Strange, like, teach me. Show me how to do that. And so he basically, took a little time with me, showed me how to hop in the back wheel, hop in place. And then the rest of that 2-week vacation, every single time the RV stopped, I would hop out with the bike and just practice hopping in place and trying to get on my back wheel. So by the time I got home to Wisconsin to my friends, I could ride trials and they couldn't. Right. And so it was sort of like my equalizer, my advantage of like, oh, I've got this bike handling skill that no one else has. I'm just going to double down on this because there's no way I'm going to keep up with them when they try to go fast. But this is really fun and this is exciting. And, it's kind of like problem solving on a bike. It's this super high level of bike control, but it's also like, how do I get from here to there? And what do I need to do to get there? So that element of it got me really excited about it. And then I don't know, I just kept doing it because it was fun. And then I met people like Jeff and Hans, and, you just get like adopted into this group. And
so how did you get to the point where you're meeting them? Like from like just showing off with your friends in Wisconsin, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So back in the day, you might remember the NORBA series, the National
Yeah.
Off-Road Bicycle Association. It was a national event series, and
Yeah.
it had a stop in Red Wing, Minnesota. This is like 97, I want to say.
Hmm.
And the trials was actually a discipline in the NORBA series. In the early days of NORBA, they actually made all the riders compete in all the disciplines, which is
Oh,
interesting
interesting.
because in that same era, we were locking up all the rainbow jerseys and winning all the world championships. And then when they stopped making them do that, it kind of went away. So I don't know. Just saying. I'm just saying. But
Just saying.
they made people like Johnny T and like all these riders that are like we know as like the top cross country and downhill riders. They were all competing in the trial stuff as well as dual slalom, downhill cross country. And so trials is always part of the NORBA series. And so when it came to Minnesota, I like begged my parents, can I please go? I want to go to this event. I want to compete. And because it was on the national circuit, everyone was there. And trials then, as is now, is still pretty small. So I got to meet, hang out with everybody. And then, Jeff was back in Green Bay, Wisconsin, like a year later for some demos. So I went to see him and I was like, remember me,
Yeah.
And it just kind of snowballed from there. I continued going to more contests after that and started hanging out with everybody. And there was actually at the time a mailing list. So there was
a mailing list.
Yeah. But this is like when email first came out, right? So you would email this one address and some magic, it would send your email to every single person on the mailing list. And then you could reply to the thread and it would, again, email everybody on the mailing list. So you're getting like hundreds of emails a day, but it was always from trials riders. And they were talking about bike stuff, technique, mechanical stuff. It was like
before they had a forum. It was just like, just email everybody.
Yeah. Just reply all. Here you go.
Yeah.
And so, I connected to that super early on and met a ton of people. And then it became this cool thing of like, how many people from the mailing list can you meet in real life? So you'd go to contests or there'd be rides set up in certain places and you'd be kind of like checking off your list of like, aha, I met this guy. And it was cool. Like, I think I don't actually know, but I bet I probably met about 80% of the people from that list. And it's not just like a US list. There were a lot of people in the UK that were on it and from all over the place. So it was a cool way to like connect with people. And that was kind of early days of everything. It was something special for sure.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's definitely interesting, like thinking about how like we approach life at that point or like at that age for us, compared to like how kids do it now. They're like, yeah, I game with this dude. We're pretty good friends. Have you ever met him? No. Where does he live? Malaysia. Like
totally.
It's just like so weird. Like I've done IT for a long time, so I'd say that we were a little more internet savvy than most people, kind of a little sooner, put it that way. So like, I have a bunch of people that I've known for like 20 years that I've never met in person. And we've had like helped each other out with jobs and like solving problems and all kinds of stuff. And it's like, yeah, how did I know that guy? I don't know. I met him playing some game or some forum that we used to chat on. You know what I mean? It's like,
this is the future, man. This is like what it's, I guess, supposed to be all about. And yeah, so cool. I mean, I think if anything, it gives us a lot more appreciation for what we have now. The fact that you can go on Discord or Instagram or YouTube or wherever and meet people and talk about the stuff that you love and connect with tons and tons of other people who care about the same thing. Like back in the day, that took a lot more effort, and I definitely appreciate every bit of it now. It's so cool that this is how it is.
It's really cool to be able to have the access to the creators, in a way that is just impossible before. Like somebody made a video, you didn't know who that person was, like unless they were like the star of the video, right? But most of the time, like the people creating the videos weren't the talent too. You know what I mean? And so it's like now you have such an inside look into who that person is, more than just like back then it was like, hey, you watch some rad trials video or some BMX video or something like that. You didn't really get to know the person. You got to see like what they would do, but you didn't get to know the person. And now you've been doing YouTube long enough. You have enough subscribers that you can relate with this. Is like people come up to you and they know so much of you and you don't even know their name. You know what I mean? Like they really know you. Like, how are you doing this? And how's this going? And like, how do you like the new car? And blah, blah, blah. And you're like, dude, I don't even know who you are. You know, like it's kind of crazy.
It is pretty incredible. And, you know, I absolutely don't take it for granted. Like at Sea Otter this year, when people are coming up, I'm still like pretty blown away when people come up. You know, I still get so excited and so encouraged because, I mean, you know, just as well as I do, making videos is so much work and you put so much effort into every single thing and you overthink every element of it and you work so hard to put out this 5 or 6, 7 minute piece. And it took you days and days to put together. And it's a really cool thing when that happens, when somebody comes up and says like, hey, keep up the good work. Like that doesn't happen. I was talking to my wife about this. I was like, imagine if somebody came up to you at your job and was like, hey, you're like, keep doing this. You're good at it. Like that would be the best thing ever.
Right.
And so every time that happens to me, I just like try to soak that in. Cause it's like, I know that it's sort of, you know, like people get a chance to like spend a lot of time listening to you and watching you and hopefully learning from you and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But still, it's like the best thing ever when it does happen. It's like, I haven't gotten sick of it. That's for sure.
Yeah. And I don't think you can. I think if anything, you grow like accustomed to like wanting that. I think that's the reason that you do it. You know, at the end of the day, like humans like to be like, they like to feel good about what they're doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like having somebody else come up and tell you like, hey, you've influenced me or you've made some change in my life or I really appreciate what you're doing, like it feels good. And I think that's like a little drug that you kind of like, you're just like kind of chasing after.
Yeah.
At least for me, you know.
I think the piece of advice, I was having a conversation with one of my friends who's an artist, and we were talking about, you know, what I was working on and everything. And I was trying to really wrap my head around what I truly was, where I was supposed to take all this. And he asked me this question, which sounds a little woo woo, but he just said, how are you bringing dignity to the thing that you love? And that just hit me so hard of just like, I know exactly what I need to do, you know? And every single time someone comes up and says something, it reinforces like, okay, I'm doing exactly that. I'm bringing dignity to this thing that I love. And it helps me put all that effort right back into it and like carry that momentum, you know?
When you started, let's take, I'm about to jump way too far in the future here. Let's go back to, you said something earlier that you picked up a camera and things changed for you. What was that like, that experience with the camera?
So I was in college and I got this roommate who was super into, you know, computers just in general. And he was like, hey, I got this software that we can like shoot and edit videos. And at that time I'd been riding trials for quite some time. And I was somewhat known on campus as like, oh, the bike guy, you know, because I would always be riding around campus and like hopping on stuff and jumping off stuff. And I rode a lot because I was in college and that's what I did with all my free time. And so when this guy moved in with me, he's like, oh, you're the bike guy. Like, yeah. So he's like, hey, I could come with you and we could film stuff and then we could edit it. I was like, oh, that would be really cool. Like, let's do it. And in the back of my head, I'd always kind of wanted to learn how to do the editing stuff and to put stuff together. And he basically taught me how to use the program. And we would always go out and film as much as we could on campus and then put little edits together to the point where we eventually made this like video magazine. It was called Match Videozine. This is way back in the day. In fact, the first 3 video zines were on VHS. So that totally dates me. And then we made another 5 or 6 on DVD after that. But
how did you get, like, what were you filming with? Like a camcorder?
Yeah. We had just like a mini DV cam, you know.
So it was digital then. So you could just easily put it onto a computer to edit it then.
It was still tape. So the mini DV tape was like a little tape. Like,
I remember that one. Yeah.
So you'd have to digitize it, which was interesting. You'd have to like watch it, set your in and out points, then digitize it into the computer, and then you could put it on the editing timeline. It's not like now where I just plug in my SD card.
Right. Yeah, I've thought about that because I got into, you know, editing just not too long ago. So to me, I have no idea how people did it back in the day. You know what I mean? Like,
It was
so
way
it's
harder.
interesting to hear. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, like if you ran out of tape, you'd have to like rush to Best Buy and get like a 6
Right.
pack of these tapes. And if you were filming, because what would happen a lot was you'd be filming and then someone would do something sick, and then you'd want to watch it back and see how the footage came out. But the
Yeah.
problem is there is a thing called a time code. So in a tape like that, it would go 0 and then count the seconds and all that stuff and count the
Right.
frames. Well, if you watch that clip back and then you went past when it had recorded, it would reset the timer to 0. So if you didn't have one continuous thing, you could have a bunch of breaks, so that when you were putting that video back into the computer, you could only log. It's called logging and capturing. You could only log that window. So if you had a lot of breaks, it was really tedious to like put all this stuff in. These are old school problems. You don't have to worry about any of this stuff now. You just airdrop it in or whatever.
Right.
But that was a huge pain in the butt, because you'd be excited that somebody threw down a hammer. You'd want to watch it, but then it would totally screw up your footage. So, a lot has definitely changed since I started editing VHS.
Yeah, definitely. So he teaches you how to use this program, and then
it was off to the races.
Yeah, you're just
fully committed. Yeah. And
what were you going to school for?
Journalism. So I have
so it kind of went together then.
Sort of, yeah. And I was riding with all these pro riders like Jeff and everybody else, so it made sense for me to just bring a camera along and film it and then edit it and make little videos. And that was at the time when mountain biking was kind of figuring out free riding. So we basically got a chance to see, the first guys doing 360s off drops and bar spins and all the first round of slope style stuff. A lot of those guys actually started out as trials riders or could ride trials or whatever. And I had this like overlap of people, like guys like Aaron Chase were kind of coming in and riding with guys like Jeff. And we all just kind of got together. And so I had a front row seat to the progression of freeride mountain biking at that point.
Right.
And just kept filming and filming, got involved with DH Productions, which had done the Chain Reaction series, worked for him for a while, moved to Pennsylvania, lived like right down the street from Woodward. And just
Where
like
in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, in Springfield. I forget. Spring Mills, I think. I don't know. Either way, it was
somewhere in Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
I'm from Pennsylvania originally. That's why.
Oh, right. Yeah. Just outside of State College. So.
Oh, okay. So up in the northern part of the northeastern part of the state. Yeah.
Yeah. I lived in a really, really weird apartment out there, but I'm pretty sure it was haunted, like properly haunted.
Everything's haunted back there, dude. I don't think there's anything that's not.
Oh man.
There's some weird shit in Pennsylvania, man.
I'll say. But I wouldn't trade that move. I got to ride with everybody, got to hang out with everybody firsthand. It was so much easier to get to anywhere I wanted to be on the East Coast. That's where I met Eric Porter, and he and I became, close friends after that. And so I got a chance to like really meet everybody and build these relationships and get to know everybody on the East Coast really well while I was out there. And then moved out to the West Coast in 2005.
So somewhere along the line, you start like making movies, like legit movies, or how that happened?
So it was a little bit of everything. So I was making these DVDs. We did the Summer of Shred series. I helped on with a bunch of his DH production stuff, helped Chase and all those guys film, and then started doing a lot of kind of one-off content. So this is before YouTube existed. We would work with companies like FSA. It was like FSA Gravity, that thing that Porter had kind of started up over there. And I worked with them to make branded content of the riders that they would then put on their website. Like it would be directly in their website, not on YouTube links.
Yeah, there was no other host, basically. You had to host your own videos,
Yeah, it'd be like a flash player of just that clip. So I started making all these videos because it was like, well, you can pay this much money to have a one-page ad in a magazine that someone's going to flip through in a second. Or you could pay me the same amount of money and I'll make you a 3-minute thing that people are going to see, and we'll post it on Pink Bike, put it on your website, we'll put it wherever. Yeah. And so I had a pretty good little thing going for a while there where I was doing a lot of branded stuff before branded content was really like a proper thing, before you could just go to YouTube and all that.
Right.
And I ended up going to a Red Bull event in Italy. And I was at the media dinner or whatever, and I was sitting across from this guy, Raymond DeLue. and he owned a website called Freecaster, and Freecaster at the time was doing a lot of like if Clay Porter came out with a movie, his trailer would be on Freecaster, but it was like every sport, BMX, mountain bike, motocross, you name it. It was all like action sport. This is like the best content is on here.
Yeah.
And so I got to know Raymond there at that event, and he asked me if I'd be interested in working on some projects with him. And the thing that we started with was the UCI live stream. So before you could go to Red Bull TV to watch the UCI, it was originally on Freecaster. So we actually hired Rob Warner, and we actually did all of that stuff to get the UCI live streams going. We were the first ones to do it. And I think Red Bull, they like cherry picked the stuff they liked from it and made it to what it was. But that's how he and I started. So I kind of pivoted from doing, mountain bike DVDs to now live streaming of the World Cup series. And I got to travel around filming all of the track walks and interviews and all that kind of stuff at the World Cups for a while, which was
so when you were filming all that stuff, were you just filming, or were you having to do editing too, or
everything, editing and filming? And
so you were like full on, I guess you would call it videographer, you were doing all the things.
It was a really wild time because you would be running up and down the mountain all day filming, and then you go back to the hotel room while everybody else was having dinner, and you just be editing away so that it would upload overnight, and then the next morning everyone would see it, and then you go rinse and repeat all weekend. So I would just fly to Europe, do this thing, and then get on the flight home and just like pass out because I'd just been going so hard all weekend, just like trying to put out as much content for that race as we possibly could.
Right. Because you're trying to make it happen as like real time as possible.
Yeah. And then of course we had the live stream on top of that. So this was all like shoulder content, supplemental content that went along with the live streams.
Yeah. Like highlight reels and stuff like that.
Yeah. It was a really, really, really fun time. So
I'm sure it was probably pretty intense too. I mean,
yeah, there were some pretty interesting moments. One of the like most intense ones was when G. Atherton won the world champs. It was in Val di Sole, and Rachel Atherton had the microphone. So I was filming, and she was interviewing everybody as they came off the hot seat basically that day. And she had won the world champs earlier that day. And so she was interviewing everybody, and it was like really nice and friendly and whatever. Well, that was the year, if you remember, Sam Hill crashed out in the last corner, and Steve Peat was sitting in the hot seat, and Steve Peat hadn't won his world championship yet. So it was like, oh man, it's happening. Like this might be the year. We've been waiting 20 years for Steve Peat to win the world title. Like this could be it. And everybody thought this was it. Everybody's all fired up, but G. Atherton is, qualified first, and he comes down and just blazes through and takes the world title. And you see Petey just like, his hopes dashed. And Rachel looks at me like, do I really have to interview Steve Peat right now? Like, I want to go give my brother a big hug. Do I really need to go like ask Steve how he feels about being second place for like the 100th time in a row? And it was like, kind of, like this is the one. We need this interview. And on to his credit, he was so gracious and obviously we know he won the world champ a year or two later, but that was definitely like a pretty tense moment in terms of holding the camera,
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, it's pretty. I'm sure it's very interesting, like looking back on some of that stuff and actually being able to look at the footage, because I'm sure when you're in the moment, it's really hard to take it in. Like recently, I was shooting some pictures of my friend doing a jump, and like he wiped out. I could hear him wipe out. But you don't see it because you're like framing the shot, and you're like maybe standing somewhere where you can't really see what's going on. And like, I didn't really get to take that whole thing in until later when I'm like sitting in front of my computer looking at the pictures in Lightroom. You know what I mean? So like, I would imagine for you, for like years of doing some of these things where it's like maybe going back and watching those videos or talking about it, it's like actually gets you to be able to live it a little bit.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a little surreal to say like I was at the world champs. I was there when PD won. I was literally standing right next to him. And like if you watch the documentary on PD, he like bumps my camera on the way up to raise his hands, and I'm like, is that me? Is that actually, I don't know. It feels very surreal to have been part of that thing. I was not a racer ever. And I always felt totally out of place there. And, you know, hanging out with Rob Warner, arguably one of the most famous and gregarious racers of all time. And I'm just like this quiet dude holding the camera behind him. You know, it's just, it was, yeah, it felt weird, but I'm glad I went through with it.
Right. So how do you get to a point that then you're working for Red Bull at that point? Or
Yeah, you know, so Raymond, the guy that started Freecaster, was actually the original athlete marketing manager at Red Bull. So he was the guy that came up with like the idea of the helmets should be blue and silver and like all these other like elements that we know today is like tenets of athlete marketing. And so we did a lot of stuff with Red Bull when I was at Freecaster, and I got to know lots of people, but I also got to know the people back home because I'd be home and I'd be editing still nonstop, and they would give me Red Bull and stuff. And so I got to know them pretty well. And I came back from one trip, and one of the guys called me and said, like, hey, there's been a big restructure at Red Bull. You should apply. I think you'd be really good for one of these roles. I think you should like put your name in the hat. And I'd always kind of looked at Red Bull and tried to be like a student of the brand. Like this brand is doing something really special, and I see what they're doing, and I'm a part of it because I'm at these events and I'm working with their people on the ground. And I, you know, they were just starting off Media House at that point, so I'd actually seen a lot of this stuff developing in real time. And
it's really interesting how they got to be the company that they are, because it doesn't like if you just sit down and have the like say the sentence like, this sports not even sports drink, this energy drink became like the action sports go-to company for the world. You know, like it doesn't even make any sense.
Yeah.
You know,
I think they saw maybe, I mean, I'm just speculating, but I think they saw a lot of underappreciated assets. You know, skateboarding at the time, BMX, mountain bike, all these things like weren't really truly appreciated and sponsored in the way that, you know, all these other sports were. So it was an easy market to jump into and put resources into. But the stuff they were doing, you know, base jumping and doing double backflips and all these different things, it definitely got people's attention. So what a clever way to get your brand out in front of people. At the time, that was a really rare thing to do, these projects that were interesting, that were, you know, sort of newsworthy things. And these people were capable of putting those projects together because that was endemic to their sports.
Yeah, that original marketing guy was freaking genius. You know what I mean? Like nobody else, anybody could have done that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like any product could have backed those sports and then been a household name for the, you know, because of that. And an energy drink is the one that did it.
I mean, it matches, right? Like it totally, like you need energy to do these things. Like it makes total sense. And they had the right, you know, thing and to really like capitalize on and do cool things. And, you know, to this day, I mean, those athletes rely on the actual product itself to get the job done in a lot of cases. So I don't know. It's kind of like a cool way that they thought about putting it together, and obviously built the right marketing program to get it done. And, you know, there's a lot of other elements that are sort of behind the scenes that make it like even more impressive, truly. But
so you throw your name in the hat, and then what happens?
Yeah. So I got hired pretty much like just like he said, and and started there. And I was at Red Bull for 12 years, and the first 5 or 6 of it, I was doing more like field marketing, like a little bit of everything. So athlete marketing, event production, culture marketing, which is like music-based stuff, collegiate stuff, really like the full gamut of everything that Red Bull does. Had a hand in, and I was based in Northern California. So I lived in the Bay Area, and we did everything from Tahoe all the way down to Fresno. And it literally like athletes, events, music, any kind of event that you saw that had a Red Bull, like Flugtag, all that stuff, that was me and my team putting that together. So I got a chance to do a ton of different things. And then I moved up to Portland and switched into this athlete manager role. And the athlete manager role at Red Bull is very much like about kind of scouting, signing, and then supporting athletes, where you find talent before they become world champions. You give them the support that they need to become a world champion, and then you celebrate with them when they do. But
Right,
really,
right.
like, you get to go on this journey with all these different athletes in all these different sports. And,
Yeah.
they have such a cool track record of being able to support athletes to get to that point, from the high performance program and from everything else that they do project wise to give these athletes what they need. It was a cool place to be, like, the conduit between, the brand and the athletes specifically, because they really prioritize the athletes and take really good care of them and try to,
Yeah.
help them along. So it was cool to.
They still do that, or?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's like 700 or 800 athletes globally that are working with Red Bull and getting that level of support. So it's
That's interesting.
it's really cool, like the stuff they do. I mean, stuff that's not even necessarily for public, just, hey, this is important for this athlete they need this, and we're going to help them do this, even if we don't get media coverage out of it. This is something
Mhm.
that's going to help them down the line, or we're going to help build them up or help give them a better understanding of, this or this. It was
Mhm.
really cool to see just the the depth that Red Bull could go to help these people out.
Yeah. It is really interesting. So you worked with them for quite some time. Somewhere along the line, you decided you want to start doing YouTube. I looked at your account and said you opened your account in 2011, but that doesn't necessarily mean you started making content. So, how did the YouTube thing come about? Was the account just originally for like watching cat videos, or?
Well, so I had just like a YouTube account, just like everybody else,
Yeah.
just for posting some riding videos of, trials stuff that we'd film for fun and all that kind of stuff, but never with the intention of doing anything other than just like sharing stuff with friends. It was like just a
Yeah.
place to drop stuff and be like, oh, here's the link if you want to look at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was talking to Eric Porter about this. He's like one of my best friends and has been helping me through this whole thing. And we've been working together on bike videos since the dawn
Yeah.
of time. Basically, we've been all over the world together,
Yeah.
and
He's a good dude. I had him on the show just a couple episodes ago.
yeah, I listened to that one. It's a good one.
All right. On.
I was gonna chime in. We have a mutual friend named Franklin that I was gonna have you tell a story about, but we'll save that for another time.
All right.
So anyways, so Porter and I were talking, and I was kind of in the beginning of the pandemic. I was kind of, I was at home. My wife was still working at the clinic. We had 2 little kids, and I was spending a lot of time, taking care of them as well as working. And I was starting to go a little. I needed a project, and Porter was like, man, like you used to do all this video stuff and since you got at Red Bull, like you have, production crews to do all that stuff, but like, maybe you want to get back into it. Like, and that was right as he was like completely taking off with the Porter MTB channel. And so I was watching him do that thing. I'm like, that would be really fun to be able to tell stories and to be able to share stuff. And so I kind of started playing with it a little bit, and then kind of hit on this idea of like, yeah, the thing that I could do that I don't see a ton of is I could teach people how to ride trials. Like I could put together some tutorials, some basics. And so I started by kind of brushing off the dust, because I hadn't ridden trials in a little while. I brushed the dust off my bike, and I had this goal, like, okay, I'm going to break my old record. It was like 38.5 inches over a bar. I'm going to break that record. And that'll be the first thing I do. I'm just going to work on, capturing that. And then I'll figure out what to do. And it took quite a while, like, to take the dust off to get back to that level. So I figured in the meantime, I should maybe do some other tutorials and stuff before I told that story about breaking my record. So I did a handful, like a track stand tutorial. I did a gapping tutorial, a couple other like, things, and started getting the ball rolling. And then people started coming in and be like, oh, I haven't seen a trials tutorial. Like, this is helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so I started making more and more tutorials. And Porter, I had met Seth before, but Porter put me in touch with Seth. And Seth spent 2 or 3 hours with me on the phone, just answering all my questions, giving me good insight, helping me think about things. And one of the last things that we talked about was kind of the future. And I said, the one thing I really want to do at some point is get like a space. I want to have a space, because right now I'm dodging the rain in Portland. I'm dodging, all these different things to try to make videos, and it's kind of frustrating. And I just want to have a consistent place where I can make video content. So I'm thinking about like, it'd be cool to have a little studio or something where I could build stuff to ride and then film tutorials on it. And Seth is like, you should do that right now. Just go right now and do that. That sounds amazing. And you would like, you won't regret it. Go make that right now. And at the time I had like 300, maybe 400 subscribers. It's like,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
all right, Seth, if you say so. Thankfully I had a full-time job, so it wasn't like
Right.
whatever. But I went and found this space, like 1,000 square feet, and I looked at a couple different places, and I'm like, I think this is it. It's just like there's like 1,000 square feet. There's like a little bathroom in the corner, and that's it. Just a garage door, and we call it the shred spot. And I just started building stuff in there. And then every time I built something, I would do a tutorial of what you would do to ride that particular piece. So how to ride up and onto this, and how to jump across this, and how to balance on this. And the shred spot just kind of became my home for making content. And it was this consistent place that the lighting was always going to be the same. The bikes could stay there. So got them out of our basement, which my wife was really happy about.
Right.
And I could just be consistent with like putting out content.
Well, and the thing about trials too is like, that's enough space to do what you need to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not like, hey, I want to film mountain bike content in my backyard. I need like 300 acres.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Fortunately, Seth has some property that he's made a big set, but that's not like economical for everybody. But to be able to go like get a garage space to do trials is like, okay, I can do that.
I can have a proper session in there. And the thing is, now I'm working on a lot of mountain bike based tutorials, because what trials is just bike handling at the highest level. It's just like the ultimate control of what you do with your front wheel, the ultimate control of what you do with your back wheel, how your body, and your weight on the bike makes the bike do different things. And so actually what I'm trying to do now is do a lot of mountain bike tutorial, because the basics that get you to this advanced level are actually something that you could master in a garage or a driveway or out in front of your house or whatever, or at the trailhead for that matter. You don't need to have a mile's worth of trail to do anything other than maybe a wheelie or a really epic manual. Everything else you can learn. I can teach you how to do a drop off in a 6-foot space if I needed to, because it's just this one motion. And so I'm kind of using the space now to get into those mountain bike basics, because we can teach you that stuff in that place. It's like a laboratory now. Like, we can break all this stuff down to the basics, because, I did a video about switchbacks, but actually the move for switchbacks is the front wheel pivot, which is really basic trials maneuver. So it's kind of interesting how these trials basics that we've been teaching are applicable to mountain biking. And what I'm trying to do is put these two together, because I get it. A lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to get a trials bike. I don't want to mess up my mountain bike. I don't want to be a
well, that dude
rider.
Back in 1990, whatever, showed you could do it on a mountain bike. So
Exactly. So I'm totally on that program. Like, I'll show you how to do this stuff because it's helpful. Nowadays you can buy power. You can just put get an e-bike and you'll have power. You don't have to train in a gym every single day to be strong enough to pin it up mountains, but you can't buy technique. You have to spend the time actually working on it.
Yeah, that's the thing. At the end of the day, I mean, if you want to learn how to do something, you have to put the time in. And I mean, like you were talking about hopping around on your back wheel, probably around that same time in my life, it was like, we were poor. So like my mom was always like lying about where we lived so that I could go to a school that wasn't like horrible. And so because of that, it'd be like, hey, I gotta walk a couple miles from where the bus stop is to actually like get to where we live or whatever, So there was not really any of my school friends around where I lived. And I spent a lot of time playing hacky sack but it was like, that was the thing. It's like, I'd go out in this like parking lot outside of the apartment that we lived in, and I'd spend like 3 hours trying to like see if I could get to like 50 hits before it hit the ground. And like, then it was like, whatever it was, and like, the only way you would get better is by actually just trying and failing. And I think, I didn't realize it at the time, but I was actually like learning a really important life lesson where it was like, yeah, you have to put the time in. Like your friends would then see you and they'd be like, dude, how do you do that? And they'd kick it twice and then send it across the room, it's like, but it's the same thing, even with like riding today, it's like, how do I get better at X? I go and do it over and over and over again,
Yeah, practice makes progress, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
have
it's
to
crazy.
put in that time. And when I started riding, I would get VHS tapes and I'd have to hit, pause, 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 and go frame by frame to try to figure out what these guys are doing. Now you can go on Super Rider or wherever and you can learn this stuff. And a big chunk of what I'm trying to do with the mountain bike stuff specifically is break it down to this really basic level of like, I know this is the thing you're trying to accomplish. Here's the one thing we're going to work on today that's going to actually unlock these three things. Because what a trials rider does is they take a skill and they break it down to all these tiny bits, and then they just work on each bit one at a time until that is muscle memory and it's good to go. And then you add in the next one and the next one. And then, yeah, it does take a long time to put all those bits together. But what I'm doing is just taking that one bit out. Like, oh, do you want to learn how to do drops and pedal up onto stuff? Guess what? It's actually the same thing. It's a wheelie, and it's just the starting bit of the wheelie. So let's just work on how we move our hips from the front of the bike to the back of the bike, because that's the secret sauce. It's not about yanking up with your arms. It's just this one unweighting motion. And when you start to unlock it with all the insights that we've gotten over the years as trials riders, this stuff starts to become actually really easy so people can apply it quickly.
Yeah.
So that's kind of
that type of video that you make is always amazing to me. I will listen to somebody explain something that I've been doing for 15 years. And it's like, it's amazing to me that I have zero idea that that's what I'm doing until I hear somebody like you explain it. And I'm like, yeah, that is what I'm doing. Cause I'm one of those guys that if I try to teach somebody, I'm like, yeah, just get on there and then hop. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, just hop.
just
like how? Like a bunny, dude. I don't know, man. Like I'm so bad at like breaking it down. But whenever I hear somebody like you, like, oh, well, you're dropping your heels and you're doing this and you're like, I'm like, yeah, I am doing that. So I commend you. Like, it's definitely a special talent to be able to like break things down in that way, and then also like make it digestible for people. That's actually entertaining. Like, I mean, for me, I watched that switchback video you were talking about, and it's like, I know how to ride a switchback, but I still watched that video because it was entertaining,
Awesome.
So that was cool.
Yeah. And, I really lucked out in sort of the beginning, because when I got the keys to the warehouse, the first thing I did other than building the boxes was set up an internet connection. And what I did for the first year in that warehouse, we're going on year 3 right now in the shred spot. And the first year specifically, I did 2 live streams twice a week. And so every Tuesday and every Thursday, I would go to the warehouse at 5:00 in the morning, and I would do a live stream from like 6:00 until 8, or, around that. And people would come into the live stream. We did it on Twitch at the time, and then switched to YouTube at one point. But people would come in from all over the world, and they were there because they saw the channel. They were learning trials from the YouTube channel, and it was a chance for us to communicate. And a lot of times I would film tutorials while I was on the live stream, and I would have this group of like 10, 15, 20 people saying like, hey, what about this part? Like, can you talk about this part specifically? And they kind of forced me to go back to that beginner's mindset to really think about all of the other elements, because it's easy, like you were saying, like, oh, you just do this, and stuff that's been muscle memory for so long. Like, do I use my shoulders when I do this? Do I use my knees? Oh, I guess I do use my knee when I move my front wheel. And so they kind of forced me, by asking all those questions, to really think and really even further dissect what I was doing and how I was talking about stuff and how I was explaining things, and would give me suggestions and stuff. So that crew, I owe a huge debt of gratitude, because they really helped me get even sharper with how I was talking about the stuff I was doing and how I was thinking about that kind of stuff. And it was incredibly helpful. That live stream was all time.
Yeah, I can imagine, just because I know over the last couple of years, there's been a few people that we introduced to the sport, and trying to teach somebody and getting past my own like issues that I was joking around about a minute ago is like really being able to remember like how intimidating this stuff is, or like how much it is to like for me to pedal down a trail and think about dropping my dropper and repositioning my feet because I know one downstroke is going to hit that rock that I can see 50 yards from now. Like, and at the same time, I'm braking and switching my gear. Like I'm doing all those things and I'm not even thinking about any of them. You know, all I'm thinking about is like, man, I wish I could go faster. You know, like I'm going slow as hell today, you know, or something like that, you know, and to them, it's like, they're like, I'm just trying to keep my feet on the pedals. And now you want me to like drop the dropper, and like, you're saying I have to brake with two hands, and like, you know, it's really, easy for us to forget. And so to have like that audience like that, to be able to like essentially teach you how to be a beginner again. That's awesome. And
Yeah.
plus, like when you're starting your channel, I think when YouTube first started doing the live stream stuff, like I used to do a lot of live streams. It's actually what made this podcast happen. And it's just really fun interacting with your people. Like it really is.
Yeah. I honestly, I mean, the crew that we've got, and we've kind of migrated to this Discord channel where we can all still kind of stay together. And I've since actually removed the internet. It was really expensive to have fast enough internet to do live streams in that warehouse. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the times now I'm just going in there and firing out videos as, you know, work and life and all these other things have kind of filled in, and I'm just working as fast as I can to stay consistent with content. But I really miss doing that. And the Discord is where we kind of all stayed in touch. And now everybody's making their own videos, and I'm watching their videos and watching their content, because everybody's kind of come up a lot. In the beginning of those live streams, they were, you know, beginner, intermediate riders, and now they're like making actual videos. And it's awesome to see, you know, the progression of everybody, whether they're on mountain bikes or trials bikes or whatever.
Yeah.
To be able to see that is even more rewarding. Like we were talking about before, when people come up to you and say, what up? But to see somebody actually progress, to see an unlock happen. I mean,
yeah,
that's the coolest.
Yeah. I used to, the very first email address that I ever made was a Hotmail address. And, you know, even back then it was still a pain in the ass to like find something that wasn't used. So my first email address was smear 3, because obviously you had to have a number. And and my friend was like, why smear? And I said, that's all I want to leave in the history books, is like just a little smear, you know? And I feel like YouTube is like actually letting that dream come true. It's like a way that I can personally feel like I've had an effect, like a positive effect on people in my life, and like way out, like a much bigger like span of people than I would have ever been able to before. And that actually is like, I think what I enjoy about it the most is that ability to do that, you know. Mm-hmm. It's just it's really cool, man. It's really, really cool to like help people, or like to influence people, you know. I don't know, to me it's just, I just think it's really rad. And it's like, I mean, we're not, I mean, I'm not like I said at the beginning, it's not like I'm rolling in the YouTube money. Someday that would be great, but for right now it's just passion. I mean, there's really no other reason to keep doing this other than passion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for me, I think too, the other thing I'd say is just, it's a really great learning experience to be on here and to be doing what we're doing. I'm learning so much about everything: video production, storytelling, you know, strategy, you know, all these things that I'm looking for to make my channel better and better, and to make it more effective, and make it reach as many people as we possibly can, to help as many people as we possibly can. I'm on the hunt to try to find that next little bit of knowledge that's going to help me, you know, grow. And I think that's really kind of everybody's purpose on YouTube in one way or another, is like, how do I grow in one way, shape, or form? And so I'm here to figure out how do I get better at all the things that I like, and how do I make
I think there's like a couple aspects to it, you know. There's that, there's the creative part. Like, obviously, like, you have to be a creative person, because that's like one of those things, what makes an artist paint, or a painter paint, right? He just wants to create, right? So I think that's part of it for me too. But yeah, I think you tapped on something there too I didn't really think about, is that I really enjoy learning things. And it's like always why I'm curious to, like, I bought a 3D printer like a year ago. I knew what was going to happen. It was like a fucking rabbit hole, right? But I knew that was the honest to God reason why I held off on buying it, because I knew as soon as I bought it, it's going to be like, here I go. Like, but it's really that's, once again, it's like, it's really enjoyable. It's the same thing with YouTube, like you were saying. It's like, I didn't know how to use a camera more than pushing a button. My first GoPro that I bought, I thought, okay, I'm gonna push this button and then I'm gonna make these videos. I'm gonna be like famous. And then I like take the thing out of the box and it's like, okay, what frame rate? What the hell are they talking about? Like, frame rate? Okay. Spend a day trying to figure that out. And then it's like, all right, white balance. Like, no,
there's another one. There's more settings.
Yeah, you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, what is this 4K all about?
Yeah.
What's the stat? Like 98% of all GoPro footage never leaves the camera or something?
I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, honestly, as a creator, I want to say that it was Boostmaster that had a video on like how to make YouTube videos. And his like advice, I think, was the best advice I've ever heard. And it was just post something, like just make a video.
Yeah.
Because for me, like I was doing like what you were saying. I mean, I started filming all this stuff, but I got so stuck in trying to make an edit good that I wasn't making an edit,
Mm-hmm.
At least for you, you had some experience. So like, what was that like your first episode, like your first thing you uploaded to your channel, to like when you were like, okay, I'm going to do this for real?
I think it's actually really frustrating when you do have the background, because, I went from producing UCI live streams and working on Red Bull video projects to then being like a channel with 10 subscribers. And I'd never had to worry about thumbnails. I never had to worry, because it said Red Bull underneath it, people would just automatically click on it. So it didn't really, you didn't have that same level of like starting from zero. And
right. So you would make a video and it's like, boom, 500,000 people watched it. You're like,
yeah, exactly. So to go back down to like, oh, cool, like 15 people watched this video today. Like, it was humbling for sure. And it only motivated me to learn more. And, that was it. It was all about learning as much as I possibly could. And it motivated me a lot to really dig into all the different things that I needed to be doing correctly. And, we've all been lucky that people have helped us out along the way. Like Seth and Porter have been huge help along the way to just help guide me in the right direction, help me think about things in a different way that would be successful in the end, and just get to that point of being able to produce good content that people would actually want to watch. I remember one time talking to Seth and I was like, hey, my CTR is this, my this is that. And Seth was like, dude, just make good content. Don't worry about that stuff. Just make good stuff. And those two really helped me like keep my head on straight while I was making all this stuff, because they kept me grounded. They made me, like accountable to the things that I said I was going to do, and really guided me along. And I think about the amount of time that they both invested into guiding me, especially Porter. Poor guy. I owe him big time, because he spent so many hours with me on the phone just talking through all these different things. And, both of us have this goal of just making useful content that is doing something positive and helping people out and inspiring people to get on their bikes and ride. And it's awesome to have people like that in your life who you can talk to about that level of stuff, because not everybody does YouTube videos. Not everybody puts hours and hours and hours every single week into staring at their screen and making these things and posting them and then starting all over from scratch again. It's a rare kind of person that nerds out on that level, not just about bikes, but then to another whole level of how do I not only do bikes, but then like, make content about bikes, and then make content about bikes that people want to watch and will find useful and maybe even share with somebody,
Right. We're like, hey, let's take an expensive sport and see if we can make it more expensive. Let's make it more difficult.
Yeah.
Now I'm not only thinking about riding, now I'm thinking about riding and my camera angle.
Yeah. Yeah. And the rent for the warehouse.
Right. Right. So I use that that picture from your Minecraft video for the thumbnail. Talk to me
Mhm.
about that. How did that idea come about?
Well, originally I was trying to make a video about there was a skate video called Yeah Right way back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And Spike Jones did one of the segments in the video where they had invisible skateboards and they skated all over this park with and it just looked like they were floating. And I thought that was the coolest skate part I've ever seen in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh, but I could do that. I could just paint the boxes chroma key green and then make it look like I'm riding on invisible boxes because I could just
Mm-hmm.
key them out in
Yeah,
post.
yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
That was the original goal, was to make that video. And I tried and tried and tried, and I could not get like shadows to go away. And it was close, but not perfect. And I spent so many nights in the warehouse. I was trying to do it at night so there'd be no light pollution at all and everything would stay super consistent. And I just could not get it. And I just thought, okay, well, what else can I do with all these green boxes if this isn't going to work? Instead of keying them out, I could key something onto them.
Uh-huh.
So I decided to do a Minecraft edit, and exactly that. Everything was like a static shot, and then I would just add in the Minecraft key afterwards. Then we did a live stream for Halloween shortly after, and I set up the key for all the Mario blocks, and I dressed up as Mario, like red
Yeah.
helmet, white gloves. I had a mustache on too, and we rode the Halloween live stream as Mario with the graphics, and I made a
Yeah.
bunch of shorts from it and stuff like that. And then the postscript to that is that because the edits, or sorry, the live streams were so early in the morning that I finished the live stream and then I went and drove my kids to school dressed up as Mario because it was
Oh,
Halloween.
nice. Yeah,
So they were really fired up. But
yeah.
it was a really fun project and kind of just something different. And I wanted to see, because Minecraft on YouTube is huge. Would this
Uh-huh.
bring more people to the channel? Would this bring more people to the sport? What I'm looking at that point was like, how do I get more people to care about trials?
Uh-huh.
And what more can I do? How can I get this in front of more people? And okay, here's a big topic on the entire, channel, or not
Uh-huh.
channel, but on the
Platform.
website, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
there's a lot of Minecraft videos on YouTube. Could we make
Right.
a Minecraft video about bikes and see how that does?
How did you
And
do?
it did okay. It did better than most other videos at the time, but it didn't like blow up or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I just kind of like put my expectations back in check. And I think really what it comes down to is that it's a really great encyclopedia of trial skills if people want to learn it. And now
Mm-hmm.
it's going to have this added element of mountain bike skills. And that's
Mm-hmm.
really my core competency. I'm definitely
So
not.
what was the premise of the video? Is just like show you doing cool tricks in Minecraft,
Yeah.
essentially?
I just dressed
Yeah.
up as the main character. I made all these
Yeah.
Minecraft setups, and then I just rode,
Yeah.
just doing trial stuff on it. And it was cool. I mean, it was fun, and people did watch it. It just, I don't think it really served the purpose that I hoped it would serve. And now in
Uh-huh.
hindsight, I realize, like, why would it have? It's
Mm-hmm.
way better for me to you know teach somebody on a mountain bike how to do something that's going to actually help them out on the trail. And if they learn a handful of these things and they're like, yeah, actually I have a knack for balancing on my bike, maybe I should try getting a trials bike, or maybe I
Mm-hmm.
should, I'm going to buy another bike. I think I should buy a trials bike next because that looks like a lot of fun. And this guy has a ton of other videos on his channel that would teach me really quickly. Why wouldn't I? I should try this out. This has been fun for me. So I think that's sort of the better use of my time, is to kind of develop the skills encyclopedia for mountain bike and for trials, and try to help those two groups get into the sport more than just finding random gamers on the channel.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like a really catchy thing to do, though. I would imagine that maybe not the Minecraft gamers that you're actually going to like convert, you're not like knocking on their front door and being like, oh, get into biking, but like the thumbnail is super catching. Like, what the heck is going on there? So as a rider, I think that it still has I think it's still positive. Like I clicked on it. You know what I mean? So for me, it was like, I don't even play Minecraft, but I was like, oh, that's really cool. What did he do? You know, and I you know, to be transparent, like I clicked on it because I'm looking for a thumbnail, right? So I'm like, which one of these videos would be like have a good shot that'll have a good thumbnail in it? And when I saw it, I was like, man, this is really rad. So like I downloaded the video and I'm like skipping through it, you know, in Premiere so I can just grab a screenshot. So I didn't get to actually like watch the video, but it really grabbed me as far as like, yeah, this is like interesting, you know? So I would imagine that anybody else that's possibly looking for a trials video, it's going to be something that really stands out.
So
like, hey, man.
that kind of goes into a project that I'm working on right now. The channel Super Rider is actually in the name Super Rider is in homage to something that happened in the 90s. There was a segment on a Japanese TV show called Super Rider.
Okay.
And the Super Rider segment on this show was a insanely difficult obstacle course. And they brought all these riders in from all over the world to try to tackle this impossible course. And each course had a different theme. So there was one that was like, it was like Tokyo, right? So you'd be like riding over the buildings in the village, and then you'd ride over like all these different elements. There was one that was like a radioactive dump site. There was all these different like themes that they would have these different courses, and they'd bring the riders in to try to tackle the courses to try to make it to the end. And that was a big inspiration for me of like where I could go with sort of that Minecraft theme of like, what if I made an entire course that was like insane and it was Minecraft themed, or I made an entire course that was insane and had fill in the blank theme. And that kind of spawned like, this is when you go back to this idea of like, how do you bring dignity to the thing that you love? I want everybody to love trials the way I love trials. And I think that if people could see it in that light, and you see this creative element with this obstacle course, but then you see these guys kind of tackling it and trying to get through it, like that's exciting. That's something I can get into. It's kind of like Ninja Warrior meets bikes, you know? And it was always a dream of mine to be on that show in Japan. Like, how could I get there? How could I be on that? Like, it's insane. They ended up only doing 5 segments of that element, and then they moved it on to, I don't even know what. It was kind of like, have you ever seen that show Wipeout? It was like where they have like all the different challenges, but they just threw in a bike one to like make it interesting ones.
Right.
So basically, I just wanted that show to exist more than anything else in the world. And I wanted to be on the original one, and it never happened. And then it kind of went away.
Yeah.
And so when it came time to like put this channel together, Super Rider was like, if I could, what would the thing that I could do that would be the most successful for the thing that I love would be to see the show come back to life. And in this era, I think actually it could be pretty cool, you know, like stuff like that works on YouTube, stuff like that works out in the world. And I just want to see it happen. So I'm working on right now. I think I'm pretty confident it's going to happen now. So we're working behind the scenes to actually make this thing happen. But to continue, you know, where we started with that Minecraft video to now a way more advanced version of that is sort of like where I'm trying to go with everything.
Right on, man. So that like, what's your ultimate goal with the channel?
I think having a channel that can help everybody just up level their game, regardless of what bike they're riding, is kind of what it means to me. I guess I just love really dissecting every single thing we do on our bikes when it comes to technical skill. And whether it's trials or mountain bike, being able to offer that up to an audience and help them get to that level is really kind of what's most important. So to have a channel that accomplishes that, regardless of how many people watch or subscribe or whatever, as long as there's somebody that's getting some value out of it, that's success to me. And if it continues to grow and more people get excited about it and more people subscribe or whatever, that's awesome. I'm psyched. And I'm super appreciative to everybody that watches and subscribes and comes up to me and says stuff and all that stuff. I mean, just it just gets sweeter as it grows. But truthfully, the best is when people come up and say like, I learned this thing from you. And it's like, awesome. I put so much effort into that. I'm so glad it worked.
Yeah. I just like telling stories, man. Really, that's what it comes down to for me. I'm not good at like, obviously, like I was joking around earlier, like the tutorial thing is just, that's a no-go for me, you know? And then like some guys can like really like geek out on like product review kind of stuff. And I'm like, that's not good for me either. I did this series of 90-second reviews. I really liked doing those because it was, you know, when your buddy asks you, do you like those pedals? You don't talk to him for 15 minutes. You're like, this is cool. This is not, I'd buy them again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that I really enjoyed doing those because I felt like I was writing all the things that I hate about YouTube. You know what I mean? Like I hate going to a video because I want to learn about these pedals, let's say. And then like going through this guy talking about this and wait, now I got to wait for the sponsor. Wait, now there's an ad playing, and like 7 minutes in, you finally get to hear the 30 seconds of information that you wanted.
Yeah.
So when I was making those, I felt like, all right, I'm making YouTube a better place. But like reviews just aren't my thing either. I think I just really, really enjoy telling stories. And I don't know if it's really for other people or just for me. Because I watch my own videos, at least when I edit them. I watch them a bunch of times, right? And then sometimes, you know, a year goes by and then you watch them again and you get to relive that experience. And for me, that's really fun. I enjoy that part, you know, except for the part where I watch the edit and I'm really irritated about everything that I did wrong. But,
that never goes away. I've been editing way too long and I've never been satisfied with a single thing I've ever edited.
I always say my best video is the last one I did, you know, because you're super stoked about it and everything looks dialed and the sound is good. And then you learn something new. And the next time you watch that video, that thing that you learned new just stands out like a sore thumb. You're like, oh my God. There's so many videos that I didn't color correct because I was just like, I'm tired of this editing. I've been working on this thing for 12 hours. It looks fine.
I got it in the right order. What more do you want?
Yeah, right. You know, for a long time, I wouldn't even do voiceovers. I would always try to say everything that I wanted to say while I was recording.
Yeah.
And
that's hard. It's really challenging.
Yeah, it was. And because then when you're editing, you're like, oh man, I should have said this, or I wish I would have said that. And then finally I broke down and started doing, you know, some voiceover stuff. And it's interesting how you learn to tell your own story over time. You know, when you first start, you just do what you think is what's supposed to happen, but you don't have your own style. But now I definitely have my own style of how I edit my videos. And it's interesting watching other people's styles. Mm-hmm. Oh God, I'm drawing a blank right now. Shit, I was watching one of his videos. He's up in your area. Kind of rides Dustin Klein. You ever watch his stuff?
Oh yeah. I love his stuff.
His style is so cool. Like the way that he edits and his like little jump scenes and all his B-roll and his humor. And it's just interesting. You watch other people like that and you really get inspired, you know?
Yeah, he's so
clever. At least as a creator, you know what I mean?
He's an incredible artist and designer. I mean, I think what was his background? He did the Cadence clothing line, right? Like that was him.
Or something like that. Yeah.
Like that. Yeah. And then I don't know. Yeah, this guy's an incredible artist, and you see the artist come through in his content, you know?
Yeah.
And just so free flowing and just seems so natural doing all the things he does. I'm super jealous.
Yeah. Or like, what's the other guy? Frew. He like films for Fox normally. Oh God. Yeah. I can't think of his first name right now. Anyways, like he has like his own, he does a lot of filming for, I want to say Fox, like big brands, you know, the super sick edits, kind of like probably the stuff that you were doing, you know what I mean? And, but he has his own channel where he just kind of does this vlog thing, but it's always so artistic and like just these beautiful shots. And I watch that stuff and I'm like, I want to make a video like that. And then it doesn't come out that way.
It's hard. There's so much time and effort, and we're trying to be consistent with the stuff we put out, and you kind of prioritize that stuff, and you try to add that 1% every single time. And but to put one of those out, you can't put one of those out every week. I mean, I don't know of anybody that can do that, but you can do one of those every 6 months, maybe, if that's only the thing you're working on.
Right.
It's, but on the internet, it's all the same. It's this video or that video. You don't know, like, oh, this guy put in this many hours into it. This guy didn't sleep for 3 days because he had to work, and then he did it after work, and then he woke up early the next morning and worked on it. Nobody sees that. They just see thumbnail.
Yeah. What would your advice be to somebody just getting started?
Just like you were saying before, you have to start. And I think even more so, it's just about raising your hand. Everything that I've learned ever is just raise your hand, because a lot of people just aren't doing things, or they want to do it, but they haven't done it yet. And you can just do it. And there's not really anybody stopping you. This particularly is a permissionless platform. You don't need anybody's approval. I think Porter and I both really struggled with that in the beginning, because we have all these friends that are pro riders, and we think that the people watching our video are going to be those other pros, and they're just going to be sitting there judging us like, nah. And you realize that actually those guys aren't watching everything that you do. And when you really realize, like, who am I doing this for? Oh, I'm doing this to help out the next generation. I'm helping inspire that next group of people that are going to come up and take my spot. It makes it a lot easier to move forward with it. And so it really goes back to that idea of, what are you doing to bring dignity to the thing you love? If you love something and you want to share it, this is the place to do it. Any content platform, really. But all you have to do is really raise your hand and say, this is my thing, and I'm going to make videos about it either way. Like, I don't actually care. I'm just going to keep making videos. It's cool to have these milestones. Like, absolutely hitting 50K on the channel was like a huge moment for me. And I've been working super hard, and I've been thinking about, channel growth and all these different things. But at the end of the day, if I really take a step back, there's no finish line for any of this stuff. I'm not just gonna be like, oh, cool, I got the silver plaque, to put on the wall, I guess I'm done. Like, no, I just want to keep making videos. And as long as this channel lets me do that, then great. There's not a finish line. I'm just going to keep doing it. And everyone else has to have that same mentality. Like, don't get into it to get the silver plaque on your wall, or to get, monetized or whatever. Just do it because this is what you want to do and you love doing it. I've been making videos for a really long time, and definitely never got paid legitimately to do it. But I love making videos, and I love sharing stories, or sharing information, or just the act of putting stuff out into the world is something that I think is really crazy. That 1 minute it didn't exist, and then you pressed upload and now it does. Like, that still feels like magic to me. So
it's amazing to think about, like, 50,000 people at the same time. It's like, next time you go to a football game or something, and you're looking at that stadium, it's 2 stadiums full of people like have hit the button to say, I want to see more of this. That's insane to, like, wrap your head around,
like the Giant Stadium in San Francisco is, I think, 42,000 seats total. So you could see the World Series and still have, like, full capacity World Series plus an additional 10,000 people on the street. That's how many people have clicked that button. That's insane to think about.
Nuts. It's nuts whenever you're thinking, and, like, when you'll send a video out into the world, let's say it does crappy, like, I don't know, to you, what's a low video, like 5,000-10,000, something like that views?
I mean, the shorts obviously do a bit better, but honestly, like, if something did under 1,000, I would probably be devastated. Like, I must have messed something up really horribly wrong. And still, like, I mean, I grew up in a town of like 7,000 people. So, it's
that's
like,
what I was getting at. It's like, even if it's 1,000, right? Like, to me, I would be totally bummed if I had 1,000 views on a video that I spent God knows how many hours on, right? But if I made something like, let's just say I painted a picture and put it on the telephone pole in front of my house, and 1,000 people stopped by and were like, dude, that's rad. Like, how excited would I be?
Yeah.
Like, it's so hard to really wrap your head around what you're doing. The reach of it, and like you said with the shorts, I mean, the numbers on those are even like crazy insane. Something blows up on shorts, it's real easy to get 1 million views.
Yeah.
Like a YouTube video gets 1 million views, man, you're buying a Lamborghini, right?
You're stoked. Yeah. You're like, I guess I'm doing this now.
Right. Yeah. You're like, but like a short, for shorts, it gets those views like a lot more frequently, put it that way. Not that I've done any of those contents, but
what
I did one viral short video and it got pulled. So like the one thing that I did that finally went viral, I was so excited to watch it happen, and it's like 2-3 million, and then it got pulled because apparently it was not appropriate for the internet.
Wah, wah. One of the things that's really kind of helped me out a lot with running, the channel and progressing, because just like the people on the other side of the screen are progressing on the bike, and to a certain extent, I guess I am too, because I'm riding a lot, but truly the thing that I think about, the thing that I'm tracking is obviously like the channel itself and the effort that I'm putting in and things like that. And, it can be kind of challenging mentally to go through some of those steps of like growth or not growth, depending on how things are going that week. And something that's been really helpful for me, which I think anybody could probably benefit from this. You don't have to be a YouTube channel person to do it, but I got this thing called a 5-year journal. And it's just like it's a little hardcover book, and it has 5 sections on each page, and it says like 20 and then dash. And so you write in the year it is, and then you've got like maybe 3 sentences to write whatever happened that day. And for me, I got it sort of to track my progress with everything. And so on the top of it, I'll write, so it'll say like January 1 on that page, and then for 5 years you write on that page. And so January 1, 2023, we're at this many subscribers, and this is like what the channel's doing. And then I write a couple sentences about what I was working on that day, how I was feeling about things, how I was progressing, what I was thinking about working on, whatever comes to mind.
That's really cool. I am like really, I'm into this. Keep going.
So I'm on year 2 right now, and I had a journal so I've been keeping a journal about my channel, which is weird because I've never journaled before. But I've been keeping a journal about my channel pretty much since I had like 100 subscribers. And I found this, I use it as a way to sort of track my own progression. But I think anybody could use this to track any sort of metric that they wanted. If they were working on technique, if they were working on riding, if they're trying to get more mileage, if they're trying to get stronger, whatever you're trying to accomplish in your life, if you have a set goal, this is a great way to track it and check in with yourself. Because when I have a day that I'm not feeling motivated, or I'm bummed out about the way something went, maybe not even channel related, but I just want to look and see how far I've come, I can page back into this journal. Or now that I've got this 5-year journal, I can look at the page above, or the entry above. So what was I doing in June of 2022? Oh, wow, I only had, 10,000 subscribers. Look how far I've come. What was I thinking about back then? Oh, I can't believe I was thinking about that. I should have been doing this or whatever. And it gives you a lot of perspective of how far you've come in whatever it is that you are trying to accomplish. And especially if it's kind of on one topic the whole time. I still like add in like real life stuff too, like whatever. But for the most part, I like keep this journal around the thing that I'm trying to progress the most around. And this journal helps me kind of keep my head in check, because I don't let it get to me as much, because I could just put it on the paper and then like close the book. But when I'm having a good day, I can look at it and be like, wow, look how far I've come. When I'm having a bad day, I can be like, wow, look how far I've come. And you look back at certain entries or something, you see the year before of like, wow, I was really feeling like garbage on that day. but now look where I'm at. Like, this is crazy.
Right.
Or, oh, wow, this is a really good day. I should try to aim for this time next year to be doing this. And
Yeah.
I'll even like write to myself to the next year, like, hey, I hope by this time next year you're here, you know?
Right.
And it's really fascinating, this 5-year journal. I don't know. I just kind of stumbled upon it randomly, and it's been
Yeah.
maybe one of the most important things I've done.
That sounds really, really cool to me. Like, I'm a person that definitely enjoys reminiscing on things. So I think that's the part that I would enjoy the most.
Yeah.
And it sounds like something, I mean, even if you had a shorter term goal, you could have a 5-month thing, and it's like, this is what you do on the first, and this is what you do on the second. And so like, it'd be real easy to, that's really, that what a great idea that somebody came up with. Right.
Yeah. They're on Amazon. They're like, I don't know, $20-$30 or whatever. But
Right.
I've never journaled ever. I've not ever been a person who writes stuff, and this just like hit different, and it really motivated me, and it just gave me something to kind of anchor my progression onto. I don't know.
I guess my closest thing to journaling is my channel.
Yeah.
To be honest, it's just telling the stories of the rides that I've done and whatnot. That would probably be the closest thing. Cause I've not really much of a journaling kind of person, but they're fun to look back on, you know?
Yeah.
So,
I'm glad I did it. Like now I've been doing it for 2 or 3 years. Like, there's no way I could see myself ever stopping. Same with the channel. Like, this is just who I am now, I guess.
Yeah. Once you hit 5, then 5 years, you're like, oh God, now I gotta get another book.
It'll
Volume
be crazy.
2.
Like, can you imagine where you'll be in 5 years if you continue just progressing at the thing that you want to, you know? If you put 5 years, what's the line? It's something like, people overestimate where they can get in 1 year, but they underestimate where they can go in 5.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's interesting.
By the time I get to the end of that journal, where will all of this be?
Yeah.
But I bet it'll be fascinating.
Right.
If I don't give up, if I keep like, on it every day for 5 years, I mean, what could you accomplish in 5? You could learn a language. You could do all kinds of like random stuff, It's kind of crazy to think about what you could do in that amount of time.
I don't have a clue. I don't think I know what my goal is of doing this channel or both of my channels. I don't really think I know what my goal is. Like it sounds like you have like a goal. You're like, I want to, be teaching this stuff to these other people and having them like get into biking more. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't really know. I
think it's okay though too. Like that's sometimes the best art doesn't have a reason for being, it just sprang to life, and people are like, I just make art because I make art. This is what I do. This is how I communicate with the world. And I think that's okay. I don't think every single person has to have like a set goal or a set intention or anything. It can just be like, this is my art project and you're here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you have an end goal? Do you have like a goal? Like, you're like, okay, I would love to, like, I want to be quit my job and buy a house. And you're like, do you have like a goal, or is it just, keep plugging away and see where you get?
Honestly, I would love to be in a scenario where I could just ride and film. And, that was the joke between me and Porter, because back in the day, I used to travel around with all my friends and film bike videos and sell them to companies or put them in distribution or whatever. And Porter's like, isn't it so funny that you worked so hard and your end goal is to get back to where you started?
Right.
But, I think like this super rider concept that we're working on right now is a huge part of like, okay, well, if this stuff does grow and continues to go in the right direction, then I can make these things happen that I want to see happen. I can bring things to life. And I think, all these channels are able to do. I mean, Seth has a full bike park at his disposal now. That's pretty sweet.
Right.
A lot of riders, a lot of channel people have all kinds of cool things that they've kind of brought to life. So could the channel get to a point where we bring, some really cool concepts to life? That'd be great.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think like if I attached my outcome to anything other than just helping people get better at riding bikes, then that might be kind of a dangerous place for me to be, because that is the goal. That's the reason for making it. But sure, could there be some like big, cool, awesome things that happen as a result? I'm here
Yeah.
for it. I would love to see it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I'm just gonna, just kind of keep chipping away and trying to reach as many people as I can and help as many people as I can. And that's
Yeah.
kind of what it boils down to for me, at least.
Yeah. I mean, I could easily say, yeah, it would be rad to like just make YouTube videos and do my podcast, and that would be my job, and not have, the 9 to 5 as well. But that's not my goal. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I've thought about quitting YouTube so many times. Like, I can't even tell you how many times I'm like, that's it. Tomorrow I'm getting up, I'm making a video. I'm telling everybody I'm done. You know what I mean? Like, because some reason, whenever I think about quitting, I still have to tell everybody I'm quitting. I don't know. Like,
Just
so
one more
then I can
video.
get,
Just one more.
so I can get a bunch of like comments and stuff. I don't know. Like, that's the one that's going to go viral. And then I'm gonna be like, damn it, no, I can't quit. But like, the one thing that every time I get to that point of like, I could just hit delete right now, there's this thing in the back of my head that's like, don't do it just yet, wait till tomorrow morning. And there's always this, I really like this community, like this, the friendships and the camaraderie, and like the meeting people like you and having these conversations. And there's all these things that I apparently like more than how much I hate the editing part. You know what I mean? And every time these positive things are like, nope, I'm just going to keep doing it. Maybe I slow down for a little bit, or maybe I like pivot and do more podcasts, or maybe I pivot and don't do a podcast for like a month, and, but one reason or another, I just can't stop. Like, I don't, so I don't know what the goal is, but I sure can't stop. So it's like, I don't know, man. It's just insanity or something.
I think, it's obviously doing something to fulfill some element that's so important and so vital in both of us.
Yeah.
Like, we love
Yeah.
making content. We love talking about bikes. We love being around bike people. All these things are important, and this is our way to impact that, to have, something to contribute to the conversation, to be part of it, and to even like you said, meet new people and get to interact with them and learn from them and share with them. And like, this stuff is awesome. Like, I'm so excited to talk to
Yeah.
another person about bikes every single time. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter, and it's even better to talk to somebody who also has a channel, because we share a lot of, the same stuff in common, and our thought process to get to this point and to keep doing it,
Mhm.
month in and out and stuff like that. It's really special to find all these people, and this is how we connect with everybody. It's by doing these kind of things, and that
Yeah.
alone is enough for most of us. Like, this is great to be able to connect and find new friends and all these things in this way. I think that's why people ride. It's
Yeah.
sure, yeah, it's healthy and it's fun and you go fast, but think about the community of riders that you're friends with, that you ride with on a regular basis, that are part of your life, that like, that's just as important. And
Yeah.
we crash off the bike all the time, but we still get back on the bike. And it's the same
Yeah.
thing over here. Like, not every video is a banger, but like, you still get back on and make more.
Right. Right. What's your best video that you've done?
The best one I did was the Danny McCaskill walkthrough of San Francisco. So he put out this video in, I think, November or December of last year, and
Mm-hmm.
I was in San Francisco with him, and I dragged him back to the 3 spots that I thought were the most insane in the video, and I made him explain to me and the GoPro, like, what were you thinking? What were you
Mm-hmm.
doing at this spot? And we basically released it, a couple days after he released his video. And so a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people were like, that video was crazy. Here's the explainer of what
Mm-hmm.
Danny was thinking. And it's a bit more context to how
Yeah.
he chose the spot, what he was thinking, how he was putting this thing together. And I just let him talk on camera. And yeah, that video did really, really well.
Yeah.
So
Is
it was,
that so that's the one that did the best by like the numbers,
yeah,
right? So what's the one that you like the best?
that's a great question. I think actually that's probably one of my favorites, just because Danny's been a friend for a really long time, and
Uh-huh.
especially as a trials content creator, you'd be amazed at how many comments are like, you should look up Danny McCaskill. And it's really frustrating because I'm like, yes, I've known Danny since he was like 15.
Yeah.
So now when people do that, I can just post the link to that video, like, oh, really? Check this video out,
Yeah.
It's nice to have a little rebuttal,
Yeah.
because I've
Yeah.
just every time I try to do a trials explainer or a short or something, people, I mean, he's a super famous bike rider,
Yeah.
and if you know Danny McCaskill, you likely know trials, and so
Yeah.
everybody else must not know about Danny McCaskill. So
Yeah.
it's nice to have some content, and we've been friends for a long time, so it was cool to be able to do something together after all
Yeah.
these years of stuff. I'd say that's up there. Every video kind of has like a special point, where I've had a different bike or I've been in a different place. The
Mhm.
early videos from the shred spot are some of my favorites. They didn't get a lot of love, but it shows like how we built the place out, how we
Mhm.
created the spot. And it's early days, where there's like one or two obstacles in this giant warehouse. Now you can barely ride. Like this morning I was doing a wheelie video and I could barely get like a second crank in because there's so many features in the warehouse now that we've been building and that we've built up and stuff like that. So I like
When you
that
say
early.
we, is there other people helping you, or is it we as in you and the people in the channel, like your subscribers?
The royal we? No.
Yeah.
It's so the building, I've had my friend Evans come in and help me build a couple of things, but really kind of like sent me off, and I've just kind of been building all this stuff by myself to,
Mhm.
my kids come in and help me paint it.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. It's just me in a warehouse talking to myself. And
Yeah.
thankfully there are people on the other side of the screen that are down to watch it and
Yeah.
apply it to their riding. I mean, that's really like the most important thing, like we were talking about, is that people
Yeah.
actually take this and use it and learn from it and become better riders as a result. Like if that wasn't happening, it'd be a lot harder to do what we do.
Yeah. How old are your kids?
6 and 8.
Oh, that's
So
fun. That's a fun age.
yeah, super fun age. They really want to be, my daughter asked if she could have a YouTube channel, and they really want to be featured on camera and stuff like that, but not
Yeah.
really like the, whatever. So
Yeah.
I actually have an older son who just turned 21, and I've been dying to do like a cross country mountain bike road trip with him. So at some point, maybe that'll happen. But yeah, right now it's just pretty much me hammering away in the warehouse.
Yeah. I think at that age, having a camera or whatever on them it's just like a really cool thing. The very first video that's on my channel and the biker channel is a video that I made with my kids when they were right around that age, and it was before biker was biker. You know what I mean? But it was like one of the videos that whenever I actually started doing the biker channel and I was going through all my stuff that I had on there, and I was like, delete. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to leave this one there. And, it's that, typical GoPro video with, some popular song in the background and no audio. And like, just like, but I just remember that day, they were just so stoked to like put the camera, like I put here, you can have the GoPro now. It's like, I get the GoPro now. They were just so amped. And there's this little tiny dirt mound, let's just call it, like a little 3-foot roll down, right, or something like that. Nothing that's anything at all. But to them at that age, like they were like, man, this is scary, and they did it, and then they were all amped about it. And my son is he's 23 now. He was just home. He got out of the military just recently, and so he came home for a little bit, and we went out riding, and we like went by that spot, and I was like, hey, you remember that video? And he's like, yeah. I was like, this is that spot. And he's like, man, that's crazy. It's just like because it's embedded in your mind because you've seen the video, and then like he also remembers the memory, but then it's like, here it is. It's like, this is the spot. You're sure? I thought it was a lot bigger than that. It's like, no, dude. But yeah, it's such a fun age, man, when they're right around that age. But I think the whole thing, the whole experience of watching them grow up is fun. So
yeah,
that's cool that they're amped about it. My daughter tells everybody I'm famous.
I've been recognized a couple times in front of my daughter, and it's like her brain just explodes. She's like, oh, you're
Yeah.
famous, or my friend's dad watches your YouTube channel or what,
Yeah.
whatever. It's
Yeah.
really comical, but it's like a big deal to them. So
Yeah.
I'm happy that I can provide some, I guess if that's the thing they think is cool that I do, whatever.
Right. Yeah. 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 And sometimes I question it too. I mean, my daughter's at this point, she's 21. She still tells people I'm famous, but, but it's like, man, I would have never thought I'd be 45 years old making content on YouTube and like super stoked about it. You know what I mean? It's definitely, if you would have told 25-year-old me or 30-year-old or even 35-year-old me that this is what I would be doing, I would have laughed at you. I would have been like, you're high, dude. That's not what
I, I mean, I think a lot of people are getting on bikes that are our age. I see a lot of people in the comments being like, "Oh, I did a video for my 43rd birthday. I jumped 43 inches on my bike, and I'd been working up to it for a super long time. But I was like, I'm going to jump my age. And that was a big deal. And
wow.
so many people are like, "Oh, wow, I didn't realize you were 43, but I'm going to also like get, I'm around that age too, and I'm going to motivate to do something, whatever." And a lot of people in 40s, 50s, some people even 60s leaving comments like, I'm working on trials too, and I'm this, or I'm a mountain biker and I'm doing this. It's really, I think a lot of people are picking up bikes even now, which is awesome. And the best part about being sort of a grown up and being into bikes is that you can afford all the toys. Back when I was growing up, I had to, basically beg my parents like, hey, I need this new part. I just snapped my cranks. Can you please, like, what do I need to do? I need to have a bike to ride. Now I can be like, I want to have the best bike, and I just got my bonus at work, and I'm going to spend all that money on this bike. And you can have like the stuff that you wanted to have when you were a kid, and that's, I don't know. I think maybe that's part of it too. People are, you've been holding off this whole time, and now your kids have gone to school, or you have a job or whatever, and you can actually afford to buy the bike that you want. Maybe that's
I think the reason that I would have also thought that it, like, I wouldn't have thought that I would be doing this now is that I would have thought that I would be aged out of making content. Like, I wouldn't have, like, 30-year-old me wouldn't think that anybody would want to watch a 45-year-old guy talk about like riding bikes and like what he's doing. You know what I mean? And yeah, you can look at your demographics. Typically, at least for me, most of the people that are watching my channel are like plus or minus 10 to 15 years of my age. Like, let's just say 10, so, but there's still, 15-year-old kids that come up to me at the local like riding spot and like, dude, I watch your channel. They're like, they're super shy and they're like afraid to say something. Sometimes their parents come up and they're like, my son watches your channel and he just wants to say hi. I'm like, well, he can say hi. Like, but I would have thought that, this would be the like we would be aged out, and I think it's something to do with how YouTube came up, and as it's becoming more and more like, I guess just like a like an acceptable like medium for being entertained, that you don't have to be 20 to make content. You know what I mean?
That's right. It's a permissionless platform. We raised our hands to make content. We said, I'll do it. I'll make content for other people to watch. I think I can offer something entertaining or something useful, and I'll do it. And maybe there aren't 20-year-olds that have the wisdom or have the they're self-conscious. I mean, it took me until I was 40 to kind of get over it and start making content, and so maybe they're just behind us. They're working through that, and eventually they'll start making content. But I think, at this stage, we've gotten to this point, emotional development or whatever, that we're capable of putting it out and making it and sharing it and not feeling self-conscious about it, or I don't know. I guess still to a certain extent I do, but
I mean, but doesn't it like hurt your brain a little bit to think like I could be a 60-year-old guy like jumping around on a bike and people would still watch my videos? You're like, really? You know what I mean? I don't know. At least for me, like, I doubt it, but if I'm sitting here being logical with myself, I'm like, no, that'll happen. You know what I mean? Like,
I hope I'm still riding at 60. I'll probably be riding a much different style, but I hope that I'm still riding a bike. I mean,
So, you do trials. Obviously, we've been talking about that a lot, but you do have some crossover mountain biking stuff. How'd you get into mountain biking?
I mean, that was originally how I got into the sport in general, and I'd been riding the whole time, and I've been living in Portland. I mean, I moved here in 2005, and I moved around a little bit, but I was in the Bay Area, so I always had access to trails and stuff to ride for. So
Hmm.
I rode for Schwinn for a while when I first started riding trials, and then I got sponsored by Diamondback. So Diamondback actually had all kinds of other bikes besides this trials bike. That it was like a
Hmm.
one-off that they made in France, and then they shipped it over for me to ride shows and stuff. But then I also had like all their, like their mountain bikes to ride at the same time. So wherever I lived, if it was in the Bay or out here or whatever, I was always riding all the local trails and stuff because it's super fun. And
Hmm.
all of these skills transfer over almost perfectly. So
Hmm.
once you learn how to lift your front wheel, you can do it on any bike. Once you learn how to
Yeah.
pivot and move your back wheel, you can do that on any bike. And so being able to ride trials or trails, you could apply all those things over, and it just made it even more fun. And you're the
Yeah.
guy at the trailhead that's hopping over the log while you're waiting for everybody else to ride or whatever. But I would
Yeah.
always ride, around Port, in Hood River. There's Bend. There's all kinds of epic spots to ride around here in Portland. And so wherever I ended up, there was always mountain biking that was sort of part of the picture. And I was actually doing a lot more mountain biking. I'd kind of put my mountain bike down or my trials bike down for quite a while.
Hmm.
And then just recently picked it back up. But I've always kind of, mountain biking's always been like a constant. And then,
Yeah.
been to Whistler a bunch of times and all that
Hmm.
stuff. So
There's some really good riding in your area. I used to go to Portland pretty regularly for work,
yeah,
and so I've definitely ridden around that area a bit. There was like a OHV park or something like that. Brown's Camp. Does that sound right? Brown something.
I think
It's like
so.
heading west from Portland and rode over not Longview, but around that area, some different stuff. So lots of fun, man. I just you guys have great dirt there when it's not raining.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And in the gorge, I mean, all over Hood River, and then you've got the Syncline Trail on the opposite side. That's, for me, it's like Trials Paradise too, because there's
Mhm.
there's a section called Little Moab that's all these rocks, and you have to kind of pick your way through it, and kind of figure out how to get through. There's some drops in there. There's some little gaps and stuff, and so I feel like when I can mix the two things together, that's when I'm the most at home, and that's when
Yeah,
kind of I can shine and maybe even cut ahead of some of my homies when I'm riding. But
yeah.
that trail is like probably one of my favorite ones. And then you get to Bend and all that stuff, and there's all kinds of stuff to do out there. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of really fun stuff.
Ben's fun. I like Ben a lot. There was a guy that I can't remember his name. I went and rode with, like, he was one of the let's just say one of the like top 10 trials riders. And I'm not a guy that like knows professional riders very well. So he was, friends with somebody else that I was riding with. And um he was like, tell me what he did. And I was like, oh, right on, that's cool. But the thing that was coolest to me was watching the way that he would look at the trail compared to how we would look at the trail. Like, as like regular mountain bikers, we're like, all right, we're gonna rock down, like go down this rock roll, and then we're gonna shoot this line. And then he would be like, oh no, I want to go like bounce out on that rock over there, and then like try to like drop down off of that onto this one over here. And we're like, what are you even looking at? Like, we didn't even see the world through his lens, and it it uh it was really interesting to watch that like firsthand and see that, like, the way that you would look at a trail compared to how I would look at a trail. It's interesting, super interesting.
I mean, that's really where I'm trying to kind of bridge the gap with these mountain bike tutorials, is to give people just like a little bit, just like
Yeah,
learn this one thing, because it will make your switchbacks easier.
yeah,
It'll make it easier to ride steep stuff. It'll make it easier to climb up this, or to, just these little things. Like, you don't have to spend hours and hours and hours trying to learn like a side hop. You just
yeah,
have to learn this one way of how you use your pedal power to give yourself a little bit of extra boost to do this thing. And let me
yeah,
just show you this one element that's going to break it down. So that's like where I'm trying to put the two together, because surely I've spent my 10,000 hours on the trials bike to get to where I'm at. But
yeah,
because of that, I can give you the 10% of that to, here, this is the
yeah,
one thing that I learned that took me a long time to learn, but you could learn it in a day, and it will change the way that you think about riding. It will change the way that you ride the trails that you're riding on a regular basis. It's going to completely flip all of that by this one thing. And that's the thing that gets me so excited. It's like those things exist. There are actual hacks in technique for mountain biking that most people don't learn or don't put any time or effort into. And now in this era where you can just buy power, you can now spend all of your time working on technique, and that's great.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm here for.
That's awesome, man. We're almost at 2 hours here, dude. I really appreciate you sitting down and chatting with me. That's been super fun.
This was really great.
Yeah. I really like it's always super entertaining to me to like have these conversations. That's probably why I keep doing it. It's like doesn't have anything to do with the views. I'm really just doing this all for myself. That's what it comes down to. I just like meeting people, man. But like it's been a great conversation. It's been really fun hearing how you've ended up to where you are today. I really appreciate that.
Awesome.
It means a lot.
Yeah, thanks so much for reaching out and bringing me on. It's so cool to have a chat and yeah, I'm fired up.
I always like to ask people at the end of the show what YouTube channels they like to watch. Like it doesn't have to be bike stuff. Like just what kind of content do you like to watch? It's always fun to get some new gems.
A lot of the stuff that I'm watching is very YouTube centric. So I'll watch like Film Booth is one of my favorite YouTube like creator channels. I recommend that one to a lot of people just because I think he's really entertaining in the way that he talks about it. I really like Colin and Samir too. They do a lot of they do podcasts, but they also do a lot of kind of documentary or like breakdowns on creators and stuff like that. You can see I'm like sort of laser focused in on learning this stuff.
No, it's okay.
But you know, obviously Porter and I, you know, I've watched all his videos and Seth as well. Like those guys have been huge inspirations to me. And then a lot of the other stuff I watch is kind of one-off or it's related to the stuff, you know, if somebody might post a trials video. Some of the guys that are in the Discord channel, like this guy J-Bank always posts videos like almost every day of him progressing on certain stuff. And I get so fired up to watch these guys that are working so hard to like pick up technique and see their progression day after day on all these videos. So a lot of times like I'm going from like these super polished YouTube creator, like learn this, get better at this, to then watching like these more like, hey, I'm just posting this for my own, this is my diary of my progression and stuff like that. And so a lot of people will post stuff in our Discord channel that's just like, here's what I practiced today. Like, oh, I got as far, this is my PR manual, you know, or whatever. So and then the other one that I really like that's sort of trial specific is called the Shindig. And their channel, they actually have a podcast as well that's like all trials podcast. But they also do this thing where they go out in London with like 15 or 20 dudes who are all trials riders. And it's just like the banter between all of the riders where it's not about like who's jumping the highest or farthest. It's them giving each other a hard time or laughing. It's like the culture that you don't necessarily get. And I just get a kick out of that. And I know those guys now, I've been over and ridden with them, but it's so fun just watching people have a good time on bikes. And that's like the rawest expression of it right there. So
yeah. I think that's the thing that makes the small channels grow. Is that when you're starting out, you don't have a style, you don't have an editing style. It's just like your personality and the things that you're excited about, and that's what people can relate with. You know, so it doesn't matter if you color grade or you do voiceovers or have fancy camera tricks and know what shutter speeds are and stuff like that. You can just having a good time and people can relate with that. So obviously you've been doing a good job of getting people to relate with you. Over 50, you're at 60 something now, aren't you?
I think it's at 61 right now. Yeah. It's crazy. Honestly, like I'm blown away that it's so cool. It's you know, like clearly there's something valuable on that channel for people to learn. And I think it doesn't matter what bike you're on, you're going to learn something that you can take away and immediately put into practice. And that's it. That's the focus. And like I said, there's really no finish line. I just want to keep helping people get better at riding bikes. And if they choose to pick up a trials bike and they want to get super into it, they can absolutely do that. But if they want to learn how to just ride trails better or, you know, pick up a trick or a hack or whatever, like that is also there. And ultimately, as long as more people get on bikes and get better at riding bikes, like that's job done for me.
Right on, man. So in your journal, you're gonna put, June 13th, 2023. What's on the biker bar today?
Yeah.
What do you
Oh,
think?
that definitely goes on there. It has to. It's like the most important thing that happened on the channel today.
Right. So what do you think 2024 is going to be June 13th?
Maybe we do another one of these.
Yeah. I'm just curious now. I just want to ask that last thing. What do you think this time next year you're going to be doing?
I want the Super Rider show to be out into the world, and I know that there's going to be a lot of thoughts and opinions about it because I think it will reach beyond the trials world if we do it
Uh-huh.
right. And I'm
Uh-huh.
super curious to see. That's the one X factor of this whole thing of like, if we, talking to my friends at Red Bull, it's like, hey, you guys know that the biggest, the most viral content on the YouTube channels is actually trials riding, but for some reason, this is the smallest bike sport. Like, I don't get it. Why
Yeah.
is it like that?
Yeah.
And could this be the thing that finally connects the dots in the right way? I mean, as
Yeah.
trials riders, I feel like we have this kind of mentality of like, why hasn't it happened yet? You see Danny skyrocket, you see Fabio
Right.
skyrocket, and you're like, when's gonna be my time? But
Right.
truly, like, how is it that like the sport itself hasn't, it's still just in the back corner, like, look at these weirdos over here,
Yeah.
what do we need to do to make people really care about, like, how is the current world champion has won the world championship 10 times. He's basically unstoppable, and he's in, like, it's insane watching this guy ride, but like, I just don't feel like he gets the respect he deserves as a 10-time world champion. The other 10-time world champion is Nino, and everybody, knows who that is. So
Yeah.
how come Jack Carthy doesn't get the same amount of respect?
Yeah.
I don't get it. And I just hope that a year from now, I've done something that's meaningful to the sport that I love, that I've brought dignity to it. And that's like, okay, what did I do a year
Yeah.
from today that like brought it into a level where more people care about the thing that I care about?
If I can keep my ADD in check long enough to get all the way off of this podcast and make a counter event, I'll send you a message a year from now and see what happens, man. That'd be fun to follow up. Maybe we should do another show in a year.
Yeah, let's do it. That would be so fun just to see. And, like I said, people overestimate what they can do in a year, underestimate what they can do in 5. So maybe I'm at 61,000 in a year,
Yeah.
and the show is still dead in the water or whatever. But
Yeah.
again, like, there's no finish line. I'm still gonna keep making videos, even if
Yeah.
nothing
I
happens.
find it very hard to believe that it'll still be at 61,000. You're doing good stuff over there. Your content is high quality. You're obviously striving to do better every time, and you continue to do that. There's no way you're not going to continue to grow. You have a great passion. You're good at what you're doing as well. I mean, like I said, the video that or one of the videos that I watched, that switchback video, it made me think about some skill sets, things that I'm like, man, I haven't done that since I used to ride BMX. I should work on that, and I don't know why I don't. And so I think you're definitely tapping into something good, man. So I'm excited to see where 2024, June 13th, 2024 is for you, man. It'll be super, super cool to see that. Once again, really appreciate you stopping by and having a conversation with me here on the BK Bar. All of you that have listened to this for 2 hours, if you hadn't hit the subscribe button, do that. If you're on YouTube, the thumbs up if you're on YouTube. If you are, what the hell was I going to say? I don't even remember what I was going to say now. If you're thinking about writing a podcast review for me, that would be rad. Swing over to Apple Podcasts, write a 5-star review. If you're thinking 4-star, don't do it. It's not worth your time. But anyways, if you're otherwise you just want to get some good content for free, swing by Instagram, check out Aaron's thing over there. It's Super Rider TV on Instagram and Facebook. He's got a TikTok, and of course, his YouTube channel, that's linked in the show more, or the notes, the podcast notes, so you can check that out. Those of you on Patreon, once again, thank you very much. Those of you that are thinking about throwing a tip at me for $1 on Patreon, go over there and maybe decide to do 5. You get some stickers. That'd be cool. I'll write you a letter and personally thank you for doing that. I really appreciate that. Just like you, Aaron, I appreciate you being here on the show. Once again, thank you. And those of you, if you want something for free, just remember this. It only takes a bike to be a biker. Get out and be one.